turn our thoughts on the first talk of the day, the keynote address which will be delivered by Shri S Murugan. Shri S Murugan IPS has worked as Superintendent of Police in 5 districts, as Joint Commissioner of Police, Crime in Bangalore City, as Commissioner of Police in Mangaluru City, as Inspector General of Police in Ballari Range and Karnataka Lokayukta, and Additional Commissioner of Police, Law and Order East in Bangalore City. He was awarded the prestigious Police Medal for Gallantry in 2006 for his brave operation during an anti-Naxalite encounter. Shri Murugan is a connoisseur of art. He has huge collection of Mysore paintings. The passion for art is not restricted to collecting. His appetite to gain knowledge about them is insatiable. Today, Shri Murugan sir will present the keynote address on Shri Krishnaraja Kantiravabyudham, an illustrated eulogy.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಕೇಳ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ? ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಶುಭೋದಯ. ಕಲಾಧಾರ 2026 ಈ ವಿಚಾರಕೂಟದಲ್ಲಿ ನನಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಮಾತನಾಡಲು ಅವಕಾಶ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿರತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಹಾಗೂ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಆರ್.ಜಿ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ನಾನು ಧನ್ಯನಾಗಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಜ್ಞಾನಿಯವರು ಮೈಸೂರಿನ ಕಲಾತ್ಮಕ ಹಾಗೂ ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ವಿಚಾರಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನಗಳು, ಏರ್ಪಡಿಸಿರತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳು, ಇವು ಎಲ್ಲದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಿಳಿದಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ತಿಳಿಯುವುದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ಕೂಡ ಸ್ಫೂರ್ತಿ ಪಡೆದಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲೇಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ತಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಈ ಪ್ರಾತ್ಯಕ್ಷಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಪಡಿಸುತ್ತಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಹಸ್ತಪ್ರತಿಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ and Kannada, if some of you feel alarmed that it is going to be all in Kannada. This is about a manuscript which is called Shri Krishnaraja Kantiravabyudham. This is an illuminated or illustrated biographical eulogy of Shri Mummudi Krishnarajendra. There is much to discuss, so I will not I will have to brush through the presentation. Therefore, all of us know about the early beginnings of the Wadayar dynasty. They probably began as feudatories of the Vijayanagar Rayas and subsequently declared their independence after the debacle of the Battle of Rakkasatangadigi, more popularly known as the Talikota Battle. And of course, Raja Wadayar is known to have started the Mysore Dhaaraa processions by around 1610. And of course, he also settled a group of itinerant artists who had come from the earlier Vijayanagara kingdom, somewhere near Ganjam, and also built a temple for their tutelary deity Nimishamba. So this is our protagonist, Mummudi Krishnaraja Wadayar, at the time of his ascension to the Mysore throne. He was crowned Mysore king at the age of 6 years in 1799. he would, of course, continue to be the king till 1831, when he was forced to abdicate by the East India Company, no doubt with the intention of bearing the white man's burden. And he had a long life. He would live till 1868. So while he did abdicate in 1831, he continued his benevolent activities, making many endowments and donations towards arts and other scholarly pursuits. He was a man of many parts, a polymath, deeply interested in the arts, philosophy, numerology, cryptography, and he is considered to have authored more than 109 such works all by himself, among which we may count Sri Tattvanidhi, Saugandhika Parinaya, Chaturanga Sara Sarvasva, etc. And of course, he was also deeply interested in board games. Not only did he devise many of them, he also authored many works on these games. And many of these manuscripts were beautifully illustrated by the artists from his palace atelier. And interestingly, as I had pointed out earlier, 1831, he abdicated due to the widespread farmers' rebellion in the kingdom. Interestingly, it is seen that more endowments were made subsequent to his abdication than before. And not only that, even the frequency of his endowments are seen to be much more after 1831 all the way till 1868. And Mummudi himself, in one of his inscriptions, categorizes his philanthropy as the 9 gems, Navaratna Bhushana, of which we will be interested in the 9th gem, Saraswataratna, which is about patronage to artists, scholars, and creation of many such scholarly and artistic works. And we will start with a small survey of some of these works. This is a scroll painting about 20 feet long by 2 feet from the Saugandhika Parinaya, which is a tale of adventure involving the hero Sugandharaja, who goes through many adventures to gain the hand of the heroine Sugandharani. And this was probably used as a stage prop during a Yakshagana or a drama. This is one of the dispersed leaves from a Ramayana manuscript, beautifully illustrated by Mysore artists. So here we see Rama wedding Sita along with his brothers and their respective brides. Another beautiful page from the Balakanda of the Jagdish Mittal and Kamala Mittal Ramayana, showing Gangadhara arresting the descent of Ganga from the heavens. This is something that was very close to Mummudi's heart, the Purnatara Kalpataru, which is basically a puzzle, a numerical puzzle on an 8x8 chessboard, beautifully colored and illustrated in a manuscript detailing what the Purnatara Kalpataru was all about. And here we have a litho which was printed in the Amba Vilas litho press. And Mummudi was very fond of distributing these lithographs to many of the visitors to the palace. So without much ado, we come to the main subject of the day, Sri Krishnaraja Kantiravabyudham. This is a manuscript. I will, please excuse me for a small interruption. I'll just... The Adita Putta of the manuscript. So here we have a brief invocation, and this is followed by a table of contents giving the contents of this particular manuscript. Sorry. And of course, so this is the first page of the manuscript. All the pages are marked with the chapter number. The chapters are called vilasas in this manuscript. So V1 refers to vilasa number 1, and P1 refers to the first page number. It is a blue cloth-bound manuscript, possibly the smallest among the manuscripts that we have surveyed, about 7.5 inches by 6 inches. And this was composed and presented by the poet whom we see in the illustration, Achanacharya, from a place called Anuprasthapura, which is our modern-day Chikbalapura, in 1859, the 60th regnal year of Mummadi Krishnaraja Odear. So the manuscript has 12 vilasas or 12 chapters with roughly 400 shlokas, and it starts with an invocation to Gopala Krishna, here seen flanked by Rukmini and Satyabhama, and see the similarity between the Venugopala in this manuscript and the sculptured niche in the Prasanna Krishnaswamy temple in the palace complex. And of course, an invocation to Chamundeshwari, the tutelary deity of the Mysore royal family. This looks quite big on the slide, but this is a very small illustration, perfectly colored and gilded by the artist. And the present work bears strong resemblance to Vikramanka Abhyudaya, a historical champu from the Kalyani Chalukya period, composed by Someshwara III, who was the author of Rajamana Sollasa. In this particular Vikramanka Abhyudaya, he writes about his father, King Vikramaditya VI. This is a 12th century work, and we see the immediate resemblance between even the chapters. So the poet, in our case, was following a well set out historical tradition in bringing out the Krishnaraja Kantiravabyudham. Just to make a comparison of the illustrations in this manuscript, I am showing you a double-page illustration of Dwaraka city in the Mysore Bhagavata from the San Diego Museum collection. Recently there was a publication by the late Sri B.N. Goswami on this particular manuscript. So this illustration is about 1/10 of the previous illustration and shows the Karnata Desha Bhava, or the Mysore kingdom that existed during Mummadi's period. And along with that, we find an illustration of Srirangapatna. You can see the Srirangapatna fort, slightly exaggerated on the top corner of the Srirangapatna island surrounded by Kaveri on all sides. You also see Karigata, Ranganath Swami temple and the palace. Of course, all these illustrations are accompanied with poetry, which is basically in Sanskrit, written in the Kannada script. So this is a map from 1931 of the same place. So here we again see the fort as well as the adjoining township and Karigata also. And of course, this is an illustration showing us Sri Kanteshwara temple of Garalapuri. Garalapuri was the name of the present day Nanjanagudu. So not only do we see the temple with its gopurams and Shivalinga in the sanctum sanctorum and Devi in her sanctum, we also see the temple chariots gaily decked up and in procession. And this is a contemporary photograph, so you can make the comparison. Not only the temple, we also see the striking resemblance with the contemporary Teru during a procession. Many of the traditions continue to be followed, thankfully. And of course, another minuscule illustration of the Melkote temples for Chelvanarayan Swami as well as Narasimha on top of the hill. Here also we see the temple chariot. And of course, finally we come to Chamundi Hill and Chamundeshwari temple. We also see the palace on the adjacent hill. And here again we see the temple chariot in the process of beginning its procession. What is absolutely charming is the scale at which the artist has worked in many of these paintings. I have given the size of this particular work. And just to make a comparison, a present day photograph showing the Jatra, the Gopura, not only the Gopura, even the pillared hall is very similar to what we see in the illustration that had preceded. The Mahishura Rajdhani showing the fortifications, palaces and temples as they existed during Mummudi's times. So we see the artist not only coming up with the poetry, the illustrations also follow suit along with the text. And of course, now we come to our main characters. We have Mummudi's father, Chamarajendra Wadiyar or Kasa Chamarajendra Wadiyar, the ninth. He was a son of Chikkadevaraja Aras of the Karagohalli family. He hailed from Arikotara or Arakotara, later named as Chamarajanagara by his son Mummudi Krishnaraja Wadiyar in his honor. So he succeeded his elder brother Chamaraja Wadiyar, the eighth. Subsequently, Kasa Chamaraja Wadiyar was adopted by Maharani Lakshmi Ammani Devi, the widow of Immudi Krishnaraja Wadiyar, on the advice of Hyder Ali. And he died of smallpox in 1796, around which time Tipu established the state of Kudadad and took over control as the Padshah of Mysore. And this is his queen, Kempananjamamba. We see her in a finely gilded Mysore silk sari. The ladies may please note. So she is being attended to by one of her royal attendants. And now we see them in serious conversation about Chamaraja Vadeyaru, Kempananjamamba, Santanarthavagi. They were planning to have a child, so they are deep in conversation. There is no intrigue as such. Oops. So, and what do? They make prayers. They go to a Shiva temple, and the king himself is supposed to have uttered the Panchakshara mantra 10 million times, and followed by the Navakshari mantra japa for 12 days, after which Shiva and Parvati were pleased with their devotion and appeared before them and blessed them with the child that they were seeking so earnestly. And this was an illustration which stumped me for quite some time, till I came across this passage in the Vamsharatnakara. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ತಾವು ಈ ವಿಚಾರವನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿ. ಚಾಮರಾಜ ಒಡೆಯರವರು ಕೋಟಿ ಪಂಚಾಕ್ಷರಿ ಪುನಶ್ಚರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. ಮಹಾತ್ಮರಾದ ಚಾಮರಾಜ ಒಡೆಯರವರು ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನನ ದುಶ್ಚರಿತೆಯನ್ನು, ಜನದ ಕ್ಷೋಭೆಯನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ಬಹಳ ಚಿಂತಾಕ್ರಾಂತರಾಗಿ ಇವನನ್ನು ನಾಶ ಮಾಡುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣನಾದ ಕೃಷ್ಣನಂತಿರುವ ಪುತ್ರನನ್ನು ಪಡೆಯಬೇಕೆಂದು ಶ್ರೀ ಕಂಠೇಶ್ವರ ಸ್ವಾಮಿಯನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು ಕೋಟಿ ಪಂಚಾಕ್ಷರಿ ಜಪ, ತರ್ಪಣ, ಹೋಮ ಮುಂತಾದ ಕಾರ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಆ ನಂತರದಲ್ಲಿ ಪರಮೇಶ್ವರನು ಸಂತುಷ್ಟನಾಗಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿಯ ರೂಪವನ್ನು ಧರಿಸಿ ದೊರೆಗಳ ಸನ್ನಿಧಿಗೆ ಬಂದು ಪ್ರಾಕೃತ ಜನರಂತೆ ಫಲಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟು, ನೀನು ಮಾಡಿದ ಕೋಟಿ ಪಂಚಾಕ್ಷರಿ ಜಪದಿಂದ ಶ್ರೀ ಕಂಠೇಶ್ವರನು ಪ್ರಸನ್ನನಾದನು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕುಲದೇವತೆಯಾದ ಚಾಮುಂಡೇಶ್ವರಿಯನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು ನವಾಕ್ಷರಿ ಮಂತ್ರವನ್ನು ಪುನಶ್ಚರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಈ ರಾಜರಾಜೇಶ್ವರಿಯು ನಿನಗೆ ಪ್ರಸನ್ನಲಾಗಿ ಅಧರ್ಮಗಳನ್ನು ನಾಶ ಮಾಡಿ ಧರ್ಮವನ್ನು ವೃದ್ಧಿ ಮಾಡುವ ಕೊಡುವಳು ಎಂದು ಹೇಳಿ ದೊರೆಗಳಿಗೆ ನವಾಕ್ಷರಿ ಮಂತ್ರೋಪದೇಶವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದನು. 12 ದಿವಸ ದಂಪತಿಗಳು ಅತಿ ನೇಮದಿಂದ ಇದ್ದು ಹೋಮಶೇಷ ಪಾಯಸವನ್ನೇ ಒಪ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಜಪ ಹೋಮಗಳನ್ನು ಸಾಂಗವಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೆಯಿಸಿದರು. ಆ ನಂತರದಲ್ಲಿ ಪೂರ್ಣಾಹುತಿಯ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಗ್ನಿಜ್ವಾಲಾ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿಶು ಸಹಿತವಾದ ಸುವರ್ಣ ವಿಕಾರವಾದ ಒಂದು ತೊಟ್ಟಿಲು ಕಾಣಿಸಿತ್ತು. ಅದನ್ನು ಕಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿದ್ದ ಜನರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಆಶ್ಚರ್ಯಪಟ್ಟರು. ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿಯು ಆ ದಂಪತಿಗಳನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪುಣ್ಯವೆಂಬ ಕಲ್ಪವೃಕ್ಷವು ಅಮೂಲಾಗ್ರವಾಗಿ ಸಫಲವಾಗಿರುವುದು. ಆದ ಕಾರಣ ಶ್ರೀ ಚಾಮುಂಡೇಶ್ವರಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಕಂಠೇಶ್ವರರ ಅನುಗ್ರಹ ಬಲದಿಂದ ಪೂರ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ಶ್ರೀಕೃಷ್ಣನು ವಸುದೇವನಿಂದ ದೇವಕೀ ದೇವಿಯ ಗರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಜನಿಸಿದಂತೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಗರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಾವಿಷ್ಣುವಿನ ಅಂಶವುಳ್ಳ ಪುತ್ರನು ಜನಿಸುವನು. ಮಹಾತ್ಮನಾದ ಆ ಪುತ್ರನೇ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಶತ್ರುವನ್ನು ಶೀಘ್ರವಾಗಿ ಸಂಹರಿಸಿ ಶಿಥಿಲವಾದ ಧರ್ಮಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಥಿರಪಡಿಸುವನು ಎಂದು ಹೇಳಿ ಹೋಮಶೇಷವಾದ ಪರಮಾನ್ನವನ್ನು ಪ್ರಶನ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಫಲಮಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಷತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಕ್ಷಣದಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ತೆರಳಿದನು. ದೊರೆಗಳು ಆತನಿಗೆ ಪೂಜೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕೆಂದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಡುಕಿಸಿ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಸಿಗದೇ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದರಿಂದ ಆತನೇ ಪ್ರತ್ಯಕ್ಷನಾದ ಶ್ರೀಕಂಠೇಶ್ವರನೆಂದು ನಿಶ್ಚಯಿಸಿ ಆತನ ಕಟಾಕ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಪಾತ್ರರಾದ ತಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಕೃತಾರ್ಥರಾದವೆಂದು ತಿಳಿದು ದಂಪತಿಗಳಿಬ್ಬರೂ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ನೇಮದಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಪಾಹಾರ ಮುಂತಾದ ವ್ರತಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾ ಸಂತೋಷಚಿತ್ತರಾಗಿ ಇದ್ದರು. So what we see in the sacrificial fire is a golden cradle, which miraculously appeared during the royal couple's penance. And of course, finally we see Kempanajamappa smiling for the first time in these illustrations. She is of course pregnant. And Mummadi Krishnaraja Vadiyar is born. And here we see Kempanajamappa rocking the cradle with Mummadi as an infant, while the royal attendants and the heavenly host attend to this royal child. A very sweet illustration, but brilliantly done all the same. Yesterday I had the privilege to visit this half dilapidated structure in Srirangapatna, which was actually the birthplace of Mummadi Krishnaraja Vadiyar in 1794. There is a dispute about the date, whether it is the 9th or the 14th of July. The plaque which was placed there by Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vadiyar says that the date is the 9th, whereas the annals and many other related literature points to a date of 14th of July. And of course, the astrologers not only cast the horoscope of the child, but they presented it to the king. And we may presume that the king, having tasted success, wanted to replicate it further. He married 5 other ladies. And meanwhile, in the palace, you see a royal attendant. If you observe carefully, this is not the queen. The queen was always dressed, as I had pointed out earlier, in a golden sari, because the queen herself had passed away almost immediately after the childbirth, within a month of childbirth, in fact. And of course, with the king passing away in 1796, Mummadi would be orphaned before he was 2 years old, and he would be brought up by his grandmother, the Dowager Queen Lakshmamani Devi, who would also play a very important role in his ascension to the throne. So here we see an illustration of Tipu in his darbar, and below which are shown some of the atrocities committed during his reign according to the manuscript. And of course, this is followed by the war, the final Anglo-Mysore War in May 1799. The battle on the left is being led by the British soldiers with their guns, while on the right we find not only the fort of Srirangapatna, but also Tipu's soldiers fighting with the English soldiers. We also see at the bottom of the left-hand page a contingent from the Hyderabad Nizam moving against the Sultan Sami, and from inside the palace we see Tipu's cavalry and his elephants rushing out to meet the enemy. Hunaragu Turushkarugu Yuddhavada Bhava. All the illustrations are called bhavas. And for a comparison, I have given you the same scene from the canvas of JMW Turner, where you find the English soldiers crouched on the banks of Kaveri, which looks more like an English hamlet shrouded in fog. But of course, we also see the battlements and the fort wall of Srirangapatnam and the smoky battle in the middle of the painting. And of course, we see Mummudi being crowned. And again, I refer back to the Vamsharatnakara, where there is a very interesting passage on the coronation. We see all the main characters, of course, Mummudi himself, the 6-year-old boy on the throne with Diwan Purnaya in obeisance to his right. I will just read out this passage. ಆ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಪೂರ್ಣಯ್ಯನವರು ಸರದಾರರ ಅಪ್ಪಣೆಯ ಮೇರೆಗೆ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀರಮಣ ಸ್ವಾಮಿಯ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಚಪ್ಪರವನ್ನು ಹಾಕಿಸಿ ಮೇಲುಕಟ್ಟನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟಿಸಿ ಅಭಿಷೇಕ ಮಂಟಪವನ್ನು ಅಲಂಕರಿಸಿ ಅಲಂಕಾರವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಸಿಂಹಾಸನವನ್ನು ತಂದಿರಿಸಿ ಪಟ್ಟಾಭಿಷೇಕ ಸಾಮಗ್ರಿಗಳನ್ನು ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡಿಸಿ ಸರ್ವ ಜನರು ಬಂದು ಕಾದುಕೊಂಡಿರುವಂತೆ ಆಜ್ಞೆ ಮಾಡಿ ನಜರಾಬಾದ್ ಕೋಟೆಗೆ ಬಂದು ಸರ್ವಾಲಂಕಾರ ಭೂಷಿತವಾದ ಮುಹೂರ್ತ ಮಾಡಿರುವ ದೊರೆಗಳ ಹಸ್ತಲಾಘವನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಪಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಿಯನ್ನು ಮುಹೂರ್ತ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಪಟ್ಟದ ಕತ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ಶಿಖಾಸರವನ್ನು ಸಹ ಇರಿಸಿ ಪಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಗ್ಯವಾದ ಆನೆ ಕುದುರೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಅಲಂಕಾರ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಶ್ವೇತಛತ್ರ ಉಭಯ ಚಾಮರ ಸೂರಿಪಾಣೆ ಅಷ್ಟಮಂಗಳ ದ್ರವ್ಯ ಆನೆ ಕುದುರೆ ಧ್ವಜ ಶಂಕು ಚಕ್ರ ಅಂಕುಶ ಹನುಮದ್ಗರುಡ ಕಂಠೀರವ ಮೊದಲಾದ ಸಮಸ್ತ ಬಿರುದುಗಳಿಂದಲೂ ವೀಣಾ ವೇಣು ಮೃದಂಗ ಮೊದಲಾದ ಸಮಸ್ತ ವಾದ್ಯಗಳಿಂದಲೂ ನರ್ತನ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಿರುವ ವರಾಂಗಣೆಯರಿಂದಲೂ ಬಿರುದಾವಳಿಯ ಗದ್ಯ ಪದ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಹೊಗಳುತ್ತಿರುವ ಭಟ್ಟರಿಂದಲೂ ಮಹಾರಾಜ ಮರ್ಯಾದೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀರಮಣ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಕರೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದರು. ಮುಹೂರ್ತ ಬಂದ ಬಳಿಕ ಜನರಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾರಿಸ್ ಸಾಹೇಬರು, you see him sitting in a chair to the left of the Maharaja. Wellesley Sahebru, Close Bahadur Ravaru, Barry Close would subsequently become the resident of Mysore. Reed Sahebru, Colonel Alexander Reed, who was in charge of the logistics and support during the final Anglo-Mysore War. Mugalot Sahebru, Lieutenant General Norman MacLeod, who was also part of the battle. ಮುಂತಾದ ಸರದಾರರು ತಮ್ಮ ತಮ್ಮ ಮರ್ಯಾದೆ ಮೇರೆಗೆ ಟೋಪಿಗಳನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದು ಕೈಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಡಿದುಕೊಂಡು ಸಿಂಹಾಸನದ ಬಳಿಗೆ ಬಂದು ದೊರೆಗಳ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ಸಲಾಂಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಆ ನಂತರ ಹೈದರಾಬಾದ್ ನಿಜಾಮಾದ ವಲಾಕಟ್ ಮೀರ್ ಆಲಂ ಸಹ ನಿಜಾಮರ ವಲಾಕಡ್ ಮೀರ್ ಆಲಂ ಸಹ ಮರ್ಯಾದೆ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಜನರಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾರಿಸ್ ಸಾಹೇಬರು ಹೈದರಾಬಾದು ಮೀರ್ ಆಲಂ ಇವರಿಬ್ಬರು ತೇಜಾಶಾಲಿಗಳಾದ ಈ ದೊರೆಗಳ ಬಲದ ಎಡದ ಭುಜಗಳನ್ನು ಕ್ರಮವಾಗಿ ಹಿಡಿದುಕೊಂಡು ಸುಮುಹೂರ್ತದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಂಹಾಸನದಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಹೂರ್ತ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಪಟ್ಟಾಭಿಷೇಕವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಸಿದರು. ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ಫಿರಂಗಿಗಳನ್ನು ಹಾರಿಸಿದರು. ಸರ್ವರು ಲಾಜವಾಬುಗಳನ್ನು ಸಮರ್ಪಿಸಿದರು. ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾರಿಸ್ ಸಾಹೇಬರು ದೊರೆಗಳಿಗೆ ರತ್ನಾಭಿಷೇಕವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿ ವಿಲಾಯತಿ ಕಿಂಗ್ ಪಾದಶಾಹರು ಕಳಿಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದ ಪತ್ರಿಕೆಗಳನ್ನು ಒಪ್ಪಿಸಿ ದೊರೆಗಳ ವಂಶಕ್ರಮವಾಗಿ ಬಂದಿರುವ ಶಿಖಾಸರವನ್ನು ಪಟ್ಟದ ಕತ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ದೊರೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಒಪ್ಪಿಸಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಕೃಷ್ಣರಾಜ ಒಡೆಯರ್ ಎಂಬುದಾಗಿ ಪಟ್ಟಾಭಿಷೇಕ ನಾಮಧೇಯವನ್ನು ಉಂಟು ಮಾಡಿ ದೊರೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಯೋಗ್ಯವಾದ ವಸ್ತ್ರಾಭರಣ ಆನೆ ಕುದುರೆ ರಥ ಮುಂತಾದ ವಸ್ತುಗಳನ್ನು ಕೈಗಾಣಿಕೆಯಾಗಿ ಒಪ್ಪಿಸಿ ಸಲಾಂಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದರು. His original name was Nanjaraja. After his coronation, he came to be known as Krishnaraja Vadiyar. And of course, the next illustration is Mummudi. This is the contemporary photograph of the site of coronation, the Lakshmi Ramanaswamy temple, which is now inside the palace complex. And of course, here we see Mummudi on the throne handing over his royal seal to the Diwan Purnaya, who would be the de facto ruler till 1811, when Mummudi would take over the direct rule. And of course, the same is being witnessed by the British East India Company officers. And of course, king or no king, Mummudi was still a child, So here we see him being attended to by his royal ladies while his playmates are enticing him to come out and play with them. So Mummadi, for Mummadi it was not just all play and no work. There was very much a lot of work. And we all know Mummadi's great interest in music. So we find him holding the veena in the urdhva position. Many of us may think that this is slightly eccentric, but this was how the veena was held during Mummadi's times. His interest and love of music is apparent in the title itself, Veenadi Vidyabhyasam Madida Bhava. There are other things also that are shown in the foreground of the picture, the weapons and his other teachers waiting to grab him from his music teacher possibly. Of course, as a royal successor, heir to the throne, he was supposed to learn a lot many things. And of course, here we see Veena Shamanna, a great Vainika himself, holding the veena in the same position from a photograph. And of course, not to be outdone by his father, Mummadi also wed 5 queens and 15 other Gandharva Patnis. But unfortunately, none of them would provide him the royal heir that he wanted. This is a mural from the Jagan Mohan Palace, which shows the names of all his 20 queens listed out. And of course, this is a very interesting portrait by Thomas Hickey, which shows 2 of his queens, as Thomas Hickey saw them. One is Devajammani, the other is Lakshmi Vilasa Devajammani in the white sari. She is pointing to her blouse, apparently having lost her adopted son Chamraja Wadeyar to smallpox in 1796. Rani Lakshmamani Devi was very worried that Devajamma had not yet contracted smallpox. So, coming to know that there was a campaign to eradicate smallpox through vaccination, she insisted with Mark Wilkes, the then resident of Mysore, to get the queen inoculated. And this was the portrait that Thomas Hickey painted to commemorate this event. Not only was this portrait painted, the government of Mysore also issued a notification in 1806 to commemorate the event. Of course, in 1811, Purnaya handed over the royal seal back to Mummadi, and this is being witnessed by the then resident Arthur Cole. And we come to the illustration where Mummadi receives his Geetopadesha from his royal guru and preceptor, the Parakala Mutt Swamiji. And of course, here we see the final illustration from the manuscript, Mummadi in his Vidvat Sabha, surrounded by all the scholars and other courtiers while he addresses them. And with that, we come to the end of the manuscript. So there are definitely many very interesting historical vignettes that we glean from this manuscript. We get to know that this is a biographical eulogy of the Maharaja, and while this refers to his authorship of the Sri Tattvanidhi and many other such works, and also his interest in board games, it glosses over the 1831 abdication, and it also refers to Narasimha Bharati, the pontiff of the Sringeri Mutt, and also the pontiff of the Parakala Mutt, as we have seen. There are references to his donations to temples and the pilgrimages that he undertook. And there is effusive praise of the river Kaveri also. There are references to many interesting scholars such as Ramsesha Shastri, Trayambaka Shastri, etc. Some of whom I have been able to identify thanks to the work of some of my friends like Karthik and Nagaraj, and many of them need to be identified further. The codicological issues, yes, in a manuscript of such a magnitude, for us from the computer age, it appears very easy to put together illustrations and text, because now all these things can be done at an instant. However, in Mummudi's times, it was not an easy joke. The whole thing had to be planned meticulously. And this was done by the artists in his atelier. There are many other features which I may have to skip for want of time. And unfortunately, there is mention of many scholars and other contemporaries. There is hardly any mention of the artists. Here, I will refer to a paper by R.G. himself. So this is how the manuscript would have been planned. On the left extreme, you find Guttugara Tippanna. He was called Mahasannidhanada Guttugara, or he was also in some places called as Chitragarara Guttugara. Guttugara means superintendent. He was in charge of artists, and he was also Mahasannidhanada Guttugara, which means that he was the attendant to the Maharaja's private affairs. So he was a very influential person in the palace, and possibly this is how the manuscript was planned. You can see the other artists seated in front of him, while Tippanna holds the Vyakhyana Mudra, which shows that he was instructing the artists in how the manuscript had to be illustrated, who had to do the illustrations, who would sketch, who would color, who would gild, who would do the calligraphy, etc., etc., etc. And of course, this was the portrait we had seen earlier of Mummudi during his coronation. And this is the sketch, which is quite common. This is how the artists would make such portraits. And this is how they would go on to color. And this is how they would make these sketches. Here you see a sketch of the king on his throne, but when we see a close-up, we see small pinpricks all along the outline, which becomes clearer in this picture. So this would be pressed against a sheet of paper and fine charcoal powder rubbed from the other side. This is the same sketch with backlight. And once that is done, they would trace all these dots with the help of a brush. So with that, we come to the end of the presentation. So the presentation would be incomplete if I do not remember my late departed friend Jagdish, without whose help I would not have been able to make much headway with the manuscript. He had painstakingly worked on the manuscript, translating many of the Sanskrit and Kannada passages for me, so that we could put together this presentation. The work is still very much on, and hopefully we should be able to come up with more details in the future. I should thank Srinivas for the brilliant photographs. He is here. Thank you, Srinivas, and thanks to each and every one of you for having given me this opportunity and being patient throughout the talk. So if there are any questions, I would be more than happy. If there are any suggestions, I would be even happier. Thank you.
Anybody has questions?
We are extremely happy for your wonderful presentation. It was amazing. It was really amazing. Thank you so much. And I would like to know where this manuscript is.
This is in a private collection.
Okay. It's in India or abroad?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Covers a very simple cloth bound.
Once again.
My question was, how was the outer cover and what is the material used? Paper or?
It is cloth bound on hardboard. So it is just like any other book, any other contemporary book of that period. No great illustrations, nothing. Very plain. Maybe the original cover was something more ornamental and I do not know of that, but the book is interesting in so far as it brings together the details that we know from many other contemporary manuscripts of that period. So as I had earlier spoken during my talk, there was that particular illustration where we see the sacrifice going on and the priests building the homa fire and something coming out of the homa fire. So that stumped me for quite some time till I saw the passage in the Vamsharatnakara, where it says that yes, a golden cradle came out of the homa fire with a child on it. So what I'm trying to say is there are distinct parallels in contemporary accounts. So this particular manuscript brings them together along with brilliant illustrations.
True to being a police officer, he has kept the time. Actually, it's 15 minutes before. So that's the discipline that he has inculcated in us, not in him. So be on time. Because we have 15 more minutes before we go for a tea break, I'll just take 5 minutes of your time. So this manuscript, what Murugan sir presented, I saw this for the first time in 1993 at the house of late Shivapriyananda. Now, you might be wondering who is Shivapriyananda. He was from the royal family of Dharmapur in Gujarat and remotely related to Krishnaraja Kantiravabyudham's wife, Rudra Pratap Kumari. She came from the place called Vana, and this Dharmapur, they were actually cousins, Dharmapur and Vana. So that family also moved to Mysore, and he was the second son of the Raja of Dharmapur. He studied in UK, then he took sannyas in Rishikesh in 1974. He was with Osho Rajneesh for a long time, and when Osho Rajneesh passed away, he moved from Pune to Mysore, and he lived in Mysore for a long time. Old-timers might recall him. We have Mallikarjun, we have Balaji, all of them who knew Shivapriyananda. His name was Vishnudevji Rana, the second son of the Maharaja of Dharmapur. I saw this manuscript in his house because he was very fond of photographing these. And yes. And for quite some time, I had the TPs. I still have the TPs. Because in those days, we did not have any other means of scanning and storing this for retrieval purposes except a TP. I don't know how many of you in the Gen Z know what a TP is. A TP is like a small negative, which is a positive actually. It's like a negative, and you had a contraption that is known as a transparency viewer, which had a light from back, and you could see the transparency. And if you come to our museum, I'll show you this. This is from a bygone era. And these TPs are there. And I was wondering for a long time what happened to this manuscript, because Swamiji suddenly passed away in 1997. And I have to tell you this, I am not bored of telling this story 100 times. His beautiful book, it would have been one of the marvels of the Mysore school. His book was ready, and it went to a publisher in Delhi, and suddenly he passed away. And what happened was, in the whole process when he passed away, his family members looked at the papers and demanded a royalty from the publisher. The publisher denied that he is having the manuscript. But that's a lie, because I had done the spelling correction in the manuscript. And look at the tragedy. He passed away in August 17th or 18th of 97. On the 10th of August, I had to go to Delhi, Mumbai, which was then Bombay. The whole night I sat, I did the spelling correction because it was printed on a dot matrix paper, sheet, dot matrix. I think you know what's dot matrix. So that's the old way it was printed. And I did the stupidest thing of sitting the whole night. He didn't ask me actually. He said, you come back from Mumbai, we'll send this manuscript. I was not doing any other correction other than the spellings, because I was just looking at the spellings and the punctuations. And the whole night I did it. I returned the manuscript to him, went to Mumbai. I come back, he's dead. And the manuscript, the family members refused to part with the manuscript despite pleading for 3 years. And those TPs that he had made for the book, those TPs are mercifully with me. And that had this particular manuscript. And at the Deccan talk, which Murugan sir mentioned, in Hyderabad, at Jagdish and Kamala Mittal Foundation, I see this presentation. I said, this should come to Mysore. Any city that deserves to see this manuscript is Mysore, and people who are unabashedly, admirers of the school. So what you saw is a priceless manuscript, mercifully, thankfully in India, in a private collection. And don't you agree with me that this was something amazing, which I don't think anybody has seen any manuscript better than this, right? Would you agree with me? Amazing, isn't it? You could learn 100 things, especially artists. You find it so difficult to compose a painting. Look at the ease at which they have composed innumerable subjects. Mind you, as the presenter Murugan sir said, this is a time when there was basic photography, travel was rare, there was no way you could record anything. You didn't have a mobile phone where you could take a picture immediately and have the gratification of seeing it immediately. If you took a photograph, the TP had to go to Bombay, Pune or Bangalore to GK Vale and come back, and it took 40 days for it to be processed. And you are saying it and on your mobile within 1 second. So this is what we have traversed. And this is the marvel of technology. And when I saw it in that 1 inch by 2 inch TP, I was actually amazed that these artists could produce something so beautiful. But when you look at this on a presentation board like this, it will actually inspire you to do more things, right? We have a very rare police officer. Policemen are known for, looking after the law and order, but we have a culture vulture in this gentleman, and he was so, spontaneous when I requested him. I just made a passing mention, sir, you are going to speak. I said, I'm going to decide it at your convenience, because you know what will happen. We are thankful that he's here, because I have been arranging programs for so long years, and whenever we call politicians or officers, the call of duty sometimes, and they don't arrive. But he's here, it's your luck and my good luck. Murugan sir deserves a huge round of applause, and also our foundation is thankful that we're having this presentation. We are having many more presentations, and I want to tell you one thing. Actually, we have crammed it a little, because we had one speaker who, I will not name them, who said who will not come, but they agreed to come in the last minute, so we had to cram them into the program, and I didn't want to disappoint them. And that's the reason why we have cut short the presentations to 45 minutes. I know it is not proper. I will promise you next year we are not going to do that. We're going to plan it in a more better way, and we'll have more interesting topics. And in this audience, we have eminent people who are who have contributed to the Mysore school. It could be academicians, it could be people who run art stores which sells these things. It could be laymen who are interested, and this is a medley of interested people. And there was a question that a lot of people asked was from Friday morning, we're getting calls that the registration is closed. The reason is because this hall can accommodate only 150 people. That's the reason. And next year, if we have more, perhaps we'll look into a bigger auditorium. Number is not the question. The place will accommodate only this many people, and the staff can accommodate only that many people. They cannot handle more than 150 guests. Not that in a chowdhury they can handle 1,000 guests.
We saw two artists of Mysore style leave us for their heavenly abode. Satish Rao passed away on 3rd July 2025, and one of our pillars of support, Professor M.G. Kamalakshi, passed away on 30th December 2025. I request all the attendees here to please stand up and pay a minute of respect to the departed. And Mr. Murugan, and thank him. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. The break is for 15 minutes.
ಬಹಳ ಸಂತೋಷಕರವಾದಂಥ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಲಾಧಾರ ಸಮಾರಂಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕೂಡ ಭಾಗಿಯಾಗ್ತಾ ಇರುವುದು ನನಗೆ ಭಾಳ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇಂಥ ಒಂದು ವಿಚಾರಕೂಟವನ್ನು ಏರ್ಪಡಿಸಿ ಮೈಸೂರಿನ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಮೈಸೂರು ಕಲೆಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ನೀಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂಥ RG ಅವರಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ರಾಮ್ಸನ್ಸ್ ಕಲಾ ಪ್ರತಿಷ್ಠಾನರವರಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಹೃತ್ಪೂರ್ವಕ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳು.